Audrey wiped grease from her hands as she stared at the text from her mom. Don't forget to pick up groceries after your shift. And your brother needs new headphones. His broke. She'd been fixing cars at Uncle Joe's garage since she turned 16, while her older brother, Liam, lounged in his college dorm, funded entirely by their parents. That night, she overheard them arguing in the kitchen. Liam failed another class, her dad muttered. We'll pay for tutoring. Audrey's savings can cover the garage's rent this month. Her fists clenched. Their garage, her savings. By 19, Audrey worked 3 jobs: garage mechanic, night shifts at a diner, and selling handmade jewelry online. Every penny went to bills or Liam's emergencies. One rainy evening, her laptop vanished. Liam needed a new one for gaming, her mom said, avoiding her eyes. Audrey stormed out, pawned her dad's vintage watch she'd secretly repaired, and bought a used laptop. That night, she Googled how to start a business until sunrise. At 22, Audrey's jewelry shop, Hidden Spark, quietly thrived. She rented a tiny apartment, telling her family it was a storage unit. Meanwhile, Liam dropped out, blew his trust fund on crypto scams, and moved back home. When their parents' plumbing business tanked, they begged Audrey for help. We'll lose the house, her dad pleaded. She handed them an envelope, receipts for every dollar she'd ever given them, from grocery runs to Liam's sneakers. I've paid my dues, she said. Figure it out. A year later, Audrey's viral TikTok about turning thrift store finds into luxury accessories landed her a Forbes feature. Her parents saw it on TV. Why didn't you tell us? Her mom cried. Audrey simply forwarded their old texts. Liam's rent is due. Your brother needs a loan, and replied, you never asked. Liam showed up at her downtown boutique, unshaven and desperate. Mom and Dad are selling the house. Can I stay with you? She pointed to the help wanted sign. The stockroom needs organizing, minimum wage. He quit after a week. Last month, Audrey stood in her flagship store's glittering opening, surrounded by supporters. Her parents lingered outside, holding a faded childhood photo of her fixing a toy car. She nodded politely but kept walking. That night, she taped the photo beside her first Hidden Spark necklace, a broken chain she'd reforged into something stronger. The caption on her Instagram post read, some people call it revenge. I call it rebuilding. Audrey's boutique became the talk of the city, but success came with its own problems. One morning, she arrived to find a line of customers stretching around the block. A viral TikTok had featured her upcycled luxury handbags. As she rushed to unlock the doors, her phone buzzed. It was Liam. Mom's in the hospital. She won't stop crying. This is your fault. Her stomach dropped, but she silenced the call. Later, at the hospital, she learned the truth. Her mom had faked chest pains to guilt her into paying their mortgage. Audrey left without a word, but that night, she sobbed into her coffee, wondering if she'd ever escape their games. A week later, a well-dressed woman entered the boutique. I'm Elena Cruz, she said, sliding a business card across the counter. I want to invest. Audrey's hands trembled as she read CEO, Cruz Luxury Group. Elena offered to fund a chain of boutiques nationwide, but only if Audrey rebranded entirely. Ditch the thrift store angle, Elena said. We'll market you as high-end from scratch. Audrey hesitated. Hidden Spark was built on turning broken things into beauty, just like her. She declined, but Elena's words haunted her. Sentimentality doesn't scale. The next month, Audrey's parents showed up at her apartment. Liam trailed behind them, holding a crumpled photo album. We're sorry, her dad said, tears in his eyes. The album was filled with pictures of Audrey as a kid, fixing bikes, sewing dolls' clothes, things they'd never praised. We didn't see you, her mom whispered. Audrey's throat tightened, but then Liam smirked. Yeah, sorry, so, can I get a job as a manager? She slammed the door, but their apology replayed in her mind. Things got worse. A rival boutique opened across the street, selling cheap copies of Audrey's designs. Worse, they used her old thrift store suppliers, leaving her scrambling for materials. One supplier confessed, your brother sold me your contacts, said you owed him. Audrey's rage boiled over. She tracked Liam to a bar, where he bragged about taking what's mine. She threw a wad of cash on the table. Here's what I owe you. Never come near my business again. The final blow came at 3 a.m. A fire alarm blared. Her boutique was engulfed in flames. Firefighters blamed faulty wiring, but Audrey noticed the broken back door, the smell of gasoline. The security cameras had mysteriously failed. As she sifted through the ashes, she found one survivor. The first necklace she'd ever made, blackened but unbroken. 2 days later, Elena Cruz called again. I heard what happened. My offer still stands, minus the rebranding. I want Hidden Spark, scars and all. Audrey stared at the necklace in her hand. Deal, she said. The twist? The fire wasn't Liam's doing. The security footage, recovered later, showed a figure in a hoodie, someone Elena had paid to force Audrey's hand. But Audrey didn't discover that until it was too late. Audrey stood in the charred remains of her boutique, Elena's contract burning a hole in her bag. The partnership meant Hidden Spark would rise bigger, but with Elena's team controlling the supply chain. As construction began, Audrey noticed strange orders, cheap materials replacing her signature upcycled fabrics. When she confronted Elena, the woman shrugged. Profit margins, darling. Sentiment doesn't pay bills. That night, Audrey combed through old receipts and found a pattern. Elena had been funneling funds to shell companies. She's stealing from her own investors and framing me. Panicked, Audrey called her only ally, Mrs. Rivera, the thrift store owner who'd supplied her first materials. I need proof Elena's dirty, Audrey said. Mrs. Rivera laughed. Honey, I've been saving invoices for years. Meet me tomorrow. But the next morning, the thrift store was shuttered, a closed by health department sign taped to the door. Audrey's phone buzzed. Elena. Loyalty is so overrated, isn't it? Desperate, Audrey tracked down a former Cruise luxury employee at a dingy bar. The man, fired for asking too many questions, slid her a USB drive. Elena's been doing this for years, ruins small businesses, then sells their bones. The files showed Elena's schemes, sabotage, fraud, even the fire at Audrey's store. But before Audrey could act, her parents showed up again. This time, her dad carried a box. Inside were childhood drawings of dresses and cars, saved by her mom. We were wrong, her mom said, voice breaking. We thought Liam needed us more, but you were always enough. Audrey's eyes welled up, but Liam's sudden text shattered the moment. Elena paid me to trash your shop, got $5,000, told her you'd never quit. P.S. Mom and Dad don't know. Audrey stormed to Elena's office, evidence in hand. Call the cops and I'll take your empire down with me, Elena sneered. Audrey smiled. Who said anything about cops? She'd already leaked the files to investors and tagged Forbes in a tweet. Meet the real Elena Cruz. By noon, Cruise luxury stock crashed, and reporters swarmed Elena's doorstep. A month later, Audrey reopened Hidden Spark. No investors, just her grit and a viral hashtag. #, rebuild with Audrey. Fans donated materials, and Mrs. Rivera reopened with a sign, ethical suppliers only. At the launch party, Audrey spotted her parents in the crowd. They waved, but she turned away until her mom placed a worn jewelry box on the counter. Inside was Audrey's first soldered ring, crooked and perfect. We're proud of you, her mom whispered, before disappearing. Liam? He slunk into the diner where Audrey once worked, begging for tips. The manager texted her. Should I hire him? Audrey replied, make him wash dishes. Start tomorrow. As the party wound down, Audrey found a note in Elena's handwriting slipped under the door. This isn't over. She crumpled it, tossed it into a bin of fabric scraps, and thought, neither am I. The next morning, she announced a new line, Phoenix Collection, made from ashes and second chances. The first piece, a ring shaped like flames, forged from the boutique's burnt door frame. The Phoenix Collection launch drew crowds from across the state. Audrey stood backstage, adjusting a necklace made from melted glass shards and charred metal, the centerpiece of her new line. Her phone buzzed with a news alert. Elena Cruz arrested in fraud scandal. She smiled, thinking of the USB drive now in prosecutors' hands. But as she stepped into the spotlight, a commotion erupted at the entrance. Elena, hair disheveled and eyes wild, shoved past security. You think you've won, she spat, holding up a lighter. I'll burn it all again. Before she could strike, Liam lunged from the crowd, tackling her to the floor. "I'm done cleaning up your messes," he shouted, pinning her down until police arrived. Audrey froze, staring at her brother. He avoided her gaze, muttering, "Just don't tell Mom." After the chaos, the event went viral. Reporters asked Audrey about Elena, Liam, the fire, but she handed the mic to Mrs. Rivera, who tearfully described rebuilding her thrift store. "Second chances," Mrs. Rivera said, "are stronger than spite." That night, Audrey found her parents waiting outside her apartment. Her dad held out a rusty toolbox, the one she'd used as a teen to fix their broken dishwasher. "We kept it," he said. "Always knew you'd do something big." Her mom added softly, "We're selling the house, moving somewhere smaller. Liam needs to figure things out on his own." Audrey hesitated, then invited them in. Over bitter coffee, they didn't apologize again. They didn't need to. Weeks later, Audrey's flagship store expanded into Elena's old office space. At the grand reopening, she unveiled a surprise. A family collection, not for parents or siblings, but for chosen family. The first piece? A bracelet engraved with names: Mrs. Rivera, Uncle Joe, the diner manager, and even Liam, though his link was removable. Liam stopped by that evening, holding a dishwashing trophy from the diner. "Manager says I'm least terrible now." Audrey snorted, tossing him a hidden spark apron. Stockrooms that way, he didn't complain. As the crowd thinned, Audrey spotted Elena's face on a news screen outside, sentenced to 10 years. She turned away, but not before catching her reflection in the glass. Grease-stained hands now dotted with gold polish, tired eyes brighter than ever. The last text of the night came from an unknown number. "Saw your story. Starting my own shop tomorrow. Thanks for the hope." Audrey pinned it to her vision board, beside the childhood photo her parents had returned. She locked up, walked past her parents' old house, now a community center, and paused. In the window hung a Phoenix Collection ad. "Beautiful things grow from broken places." Audrey kept walking. Somewhere ahead, a new thrift store had just opened,